Hey guys, welcome to Ask Jungle Scout episode 12. This is the show where we answer your top FBA questions. I'm your host, Lenny, and today I've actually got a special guest, Carrie from the Jungle Scout team. She's from the Customer Experience team. Hey Carrie, thanks for joining us today. She's also an Amazon seller. Yeah, and I'm excited to have you with us to answer some questions.
Me too. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So as always, what we're going to do, we're going to answer a couple of questions that have been submitted to the team, and then we're going to jump into the chat box to answer your questions live. So if you do have any questions for us, make sure to drop them in the comments below this video so that we can answer them. So ready to start answering some questions, Carrie?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's get going.
Let's do it. All right, so to the first one from Vishal is, can I start Amazon FBA with $1,000? So Carrie, what are your thoughts on this one?
My thoughts on this is there's a few different ways that you can do FBA, and one of them is arbitrage. So I would say if you have $1,000, it's not enough to really start a private label brand, but what you can do is you can start learning how to do retail arbitrage, and you can actually send products in doing, finding things maybe at a discounted price from a store, send them into FBA so that you can get your capital built. You can also try to, if you have stuff laying around the house, start selling stuff on eBay just to get your feet wet and just to raise that capital. I would say get up to about $3,000 to $4,000, and you can do that by doing these different ways, and it'll help you just kind of get in the habit and kind of get your feet wet and get more comfortable with e-commerce. So that's what I would recommend if you have $1,000. I don't think it's enough for private label, but definitely enough to get started doing something so that you can raise more capital. So don't give up if you have that. Just, even if you had $500, you could do stuff with that and grow that $500 into something that you could make bigger.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. I'd basically agree with everything you said there. I do think it's a little low to start a private label business. I would personally just wait till you've got at least kind of double that, I'd say, at least a couple of grand, preferably 2 to 3, before starting private label, or like you said, Carrie, just using that for arbitrage or something in order to kind of build some funds. Alrighty, so on to the next question. This was submitted during one of our onboarding webinars. Which would you recommend, building a private label brand or pick hero items that don't fall under an umbrella category, and why? Carrie, what do you think? I know that you have some experience here.
Yeah, so there's no wrong answer here. You can do both, either one. It just depends on what you want to do. So you can decide to choose a brand, maybe have all the products really relate to that brand and have it all kind of packaged nicely, or you can have a kind of an umbrella brand where you sell a bunch of random different products. I know sellers who sell that way and make millions of dollars. So either way is fine. Something to think about though, if you're going to do multiple brands, you're going to want to start separate Seller Central accounts for each brand if you want to eventually sell them, because it is very complicated if you put all of your brands on one Seller Central account to sell them later on. So that's something to think if you're thinking ahead, if you want to sell that brand eventually, to do that. But yeah, there really isn't any bad way to do it. I think that, a lot of people, like Greg, our CEO, likes to he has an umbrella brand where he can sell a bunch of different products under that brand that aren't necessarily related. So yeah, you can be successful in so many different ways. So I wouldn't limit yourself or say you have to do it a certain way.
Yeah, that actually reminds me, we've got a YouTube video coming out real soon where Greg speaks the most candidly he ever has about his thoughts on building a brand versus or kind of an umbrella brand. Yeah, so we've got a video coming very soon where there's a little bit of a debate going on between Greg and Mike Jackness from Ecom Crew, who was visiting at the time, and Mike was a fan of building a brand and Greg was not, and that was a really interesting little debate. So looking forward to kind of sharing that video with you guys when it comes out. But as Carrie said, you can do it either way. I think it really just depends what your goal is. The way I kind of look at it is I would build a brand if this is something that you're passionate about and your goal is to kind of set out and build a brand, Whereas if it's just purely an income stream and you're not really attached to any of the products, then I think there's a lot of success to be had with just selling lots of different products. I mean, that's personally what I prefer, but then I know there are other team members on the Jungle Scout team that are like building out, actual brands and so forth. But yeah, that's always a really
I'm excited.
interesting question.
I can't wait to see that Mike Jackness, Greg Mercer debate. That'll be really fun to watch.
Yeah, it's really cool. It was really fun to watch that one. So yeah, I think we'll be releasing that one really soon.
All right.
Alrighty. Our next question here is an interesting one. If you create a new ASIN and you can prove that you own the UPC block on it or UPC barcode, is this enough for Amazon to shake off piggybackers? And so this comment was posted on a video we released about hijackers and how to remove them. And I suppose the place to start with this one is kind of defining what somebody means by a piggybacker. Because if someone comes and sells on your listing with a genuine with a genuine product of yours, then that's actually perfectly fine in Amazon's eyes. Like you are allowed, like you can go sell another product as long as you've got the genuine copy of that. So if someone has your product and they're actually selling it on your ASIN, then that is actually okay. Whereas I think what people are more commonly referring to when they say hijacker is when someone's selling a counterfeit of your product. It's not the legitimate thing. So I think the way I interpret this question is if someone is selling your product, like your genuine product, and they've got got the UPC and everything, then just because you own the UPC and own the product, or you're the manufacturer, doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you can just kick them off. Like if it's the genuine product. Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Carrie?
I do believe if you have brand registry that you can have them request permission to be able to list on your listing. So that does kind of help protect you a little bit more, there's a lot of benefits for brand registry. So I think that is one of them. And, if you've done arbitrage, you have to request approval first before selling certain brands arbitrage. So I think there are ways to help prevent that. And if you really are having an issue, you definitely want to contact Seller Central and see if they can help you out with that.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with that as well, is that essentially the best way to protect your listing or your products is by getting brand registry. That's like one of the benefits of having that, is it gives you greater protection on your products. Alrighty. And so for our last question here, this was from the FBA Competitive Edge Facebook group. This one is from Miro, who asks, what is the best time to start your product on Amazon besides the beginning of the fourth quarter? I mean, January is probably a dead month. February, March, April. Thank you. And I know we have spoken about this a lot, but I thought it was an important one to share here and reiterate. So when do you think is the best time to start, Carrie?
I definitely think now is the time to start. I think people have this idea that there's some special time where you're gonna, have the perfect storm to launch, and that's really not true. I just even noticed in my own business, like over the years, maybe January is a little bit lower, but every year it grows more and more and more. So there's still a lot of people buying in January, February, March. It depends on the product. So we do have some tools that show seasonality of products. Like you can look on the extension, you can look in our keyword scout tool that shows some seasonality there, and our opportunity finder will also show you some seasonality. So you can look at that, but really don't let this idea that there's a perfect time to start hinder you from actually getting started. Know what the product is, make sure that it isn't a seasonal product. If it isn't, you really have an opportunity to sell any month of the year. Definitely Q4 is a bigger month because it's when everyone's buying presents, but people still need essentials in January and February and March. And again, like what I've seen over the last 3 years is every year we always grow. So people are buying. You just want them to buy, get them to buy your product, and you're just going to keep growing and growing. And there's definitely revenue to be had. every time of year. I mean, just think about yourself. Do you stop shopping in January? I don't. I still have to buy things in January. So yeah,
Yeah.
those are my 2 cents. But start now. Don't wait. Also factor in that Chinese New Year. So don't forget about that. That's in February, I believe. That'll slow down your process as well in terms of getting your product over from China. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. I wholeheartedly agree. Now is always the best time to start, regardless of what time of year it is. And there was actually a really great comment in this thread on Facebook where someone actually pointed out that it's actually a great time, or it is actually a good time to launch during the quieter months, because you don't want to, or that gives you essentially time to build up your listing and start getting some ranking organically by the time that the busier peak times hit, so that when those times hit, you're not just launching from page 50, but you're actually got some higher rankings, and that means that you can sort of better make use of those busier periods. And then I really like that other point, Kerry, of, we've got Chinese New Year coming up where, factories are going to be shut down for a while. So the sooner, if you are thinking about it now, getting in now is probably a good time, because that's going to knock out like a whole chunk of time that you can't get something manufactured.
Yeah. And then also I forgot to mention about PPC is actually more expensive though in the fourth quarter usually. So because it's just more competitive. So, or that's pay-per-click PPC. So yeah, I mean, definitely earlier in the year, but that doesn't mean that you can't launch later on in the year. So yeah.
Yeah. And I guess to the point of PPC being more expensive in Q4, it's like, personally, I still wouldn't let that stop me launching in Q4 as well. Because it's like, I think you can probably always find at various different times of the year, there might be some reason or another not to start. Like, oh, PPC is more expensive, or there's not as many sales, or like whatever the case may be. But it's like, if you want to do this, ultimately, you just need to get started.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
Excellent. I'm glad that we're in agreement. All right, guys. So now we're going to jump into the chat box and answer some of your questions live. So again, if you do have any questions for us, make sure you drop them in the comments below. So I'll see what we have here. Okay, this is one
I see
that
one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah? Okay, I'll let you pick the next one. Was this the one you were going to pick?
No?
I
saw that one, but yeah, this is a good one too.
Cool. So what is the best credit card for Amazon FBA? I don't know that I've got an answer for that, but do you have any thoughts, Kerry? I don't know if it really matters.
We normally do wire transfers, so we haven't actually used a credit card for like big purchases.
Right.
But I mean, there's definitely some great travel rewards cards. I think, I forgot. I think a Chase one has some, travel reward points, so you can maybe save up to go to China and visit your factory and go to the Canton Fair. So anything, I mean, definitely whatever your credit card you use, get something that has rewards so that you can spend it on your business. Or, maybe you can have something that we did is one of our credit cards that we do use for the business is that we do giveaways with those rewards cards that we get. Like we'll get $50 to, Nordstrom, or $50 to a restaurant or something like that. And just do that as a giveaway and start getting some more kind of email followers as well as or email subscribers and chatbots as subscribers. So that's something to think about. There's a lot of different things you can do with the rewards for a credit card. So do your research and shop around.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so I mean, I guess there's no credit card that is best specifically for Amazon FBA, but it's like if you want to use a credit card that has additional benefits and gets points or whatever the case may be, then it's like, yeah, why not? You might as well do that. I do remember now, I don't know if you saw this, Kerry, but someone wrote into Jungle Scout and they were trying to set something up. They were doing FBA and it was literally, they're trying to set up some kind of business where they were doing FBA, but it wasn't to make money from FBA. It was more so just to churn lots of spend through their credit card or something. And so it was more so about trying to get the benefits from this card rather than actually getting it, from the private label business, which was kind of interesting. I don't know that I'd go about that myself, but it was an interesting idea.
Yeah. I did listen to a podcast where that's how a guy started out selling on Amazon. He saw that there was an Apple product that was on discount, and he was like, wow, if I just buy these, he spent a few grand on this Apple product, and he decided to just sell it on Amazon. He made money on Amazon because it was, at a higher price on Amazon FBA. But then, he got the credit card points. And then he was like, well, wait a second, I can actually sell on FBA and make money. And his whole goal at the beginning was to get those credit card rewards, which I thought was really funny. So, yeah.
Very cool.
So, yeah. Just choose one that you will benefit you in the future. I mean, because you got to pay for PPC and other things, so you can use a credit card.
Yeah, and I mean, you can update your card at any time as well. So you can just choose any that you've got available, or you can kind of use any to start with. And if you want to change your card at any point, you can always do that quite easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Which one do you see? Do you want to pick the next one, Carrie?
Where can I go for product feedback is a good one.
Oh, let me see if I can find that one. I'll send it up on screen.
It's up towards the top. So Robert asked, where can I go for product feedback? It's one of the first questions that was asked.
Good question. So what would you say for that?
That's a really great question. I always, whenever I get samples, I actually have my friends and family try stuff out and I ask them to give me their honest feedback. And this is one of the best ways. And usually you want to find somebody that obviously would normally use the product, but that's been a really good way for me to test things. I also will just test things myself and just put it through the ringer. I had a pet product and I was just taking it out and just doing whatever I could to see if I could destroy it, or all the different scenarios. So I think that, friends and family are a good way to do it. You could also go into Facebook groups and say, hey, I need to send some samples to people. I need some product feedback of, people within that genre. Because there's all kinds of groups that, that have, different followings for the type of product that you want. So there's a bunch of ways to do it. But I think the easiest way is friends and family. They usually are very, very helpful and very honest. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. Just really anyone or anywhere that you can get it, right? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Okay, what's this one? This is interesting. Hello, what is the correct way to get the Amazon warehouse zip code or the address for the supplier or freight forwarder to quote the shipping? Let's see. So I guess if you're, okay, so you're wanting to get a quote on shipping, essentially, I think I misread that. Do you have any initial thoughts, Carrie?
Just on Seller Central, you can, figure out where you need to ship the different products to, but
I guess it depends whether you're sending it direct to Amazon. Because it's like if you're sending it direct to Amazon, then essentially you need to kind of create, to know exactly, to get the most accurate quote, you would need to create a shipment within Amazon Seller Central and get the address of the warehouse that you're sending it to, and then you can get a quote based on going direct to that particular warehouse. But I think, if you're just going to something like Freightos and you just want a general quote to go from, let's say, China, or like you would at least know where the port or the factory that it's leaving from, presumably, you kind of know that already. I guess, as long as, which I don't know the US very well, but like which coast do most China shipments come into?
West Coast.
It's the West Coast, right?
Probably, yeah.
So if you put a
Yeah.
zip code from on the West Coast, you would probably get like a fairly accurate estimate if you're using like Freightos, for instance. Would you agree with
Yeah.
that, Kerry?
Yeah. Yeah. Ontario, California is they have a huge warehouse there. So you could
Right. So you
put
could
in
use
that
that as like
Ontario
yeah.
as a kind of a estimate.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then to get the most accurate estimate, you would either need the fulfillment center zip code that you're actually going to, or the zip code of the freight forwarder that you're choosing to go with. If you knew you were going with like Flexport or whoever, you can find out the address that it would be going to, but you would go to them to get the quote directly anyway. So you would just need your supplier's address. I hope that helps. But if you want any further clarification, then let us know. All right. Did you see one that you?
There's one. There's a bunch of questions. This is exciting.
Okay, pick one.
You can just choose the next one. I haven't read it, but someone's from Barcelona.
Okay, about
So,
Amazon vendor business.
let's see. So, what is your opinion about Amazon vendor business? On my side, it has been good business, but extremely difficult to get paid. Many excuses from Amazon, the invoice, yes. So, when it comes to Vendor Central, you get paid. I think it depends on your setup, but it takes a lot longer to get paid through Vendor Central. And so FBA, you get paid every 2 weeks, which is a much nicer way to just keep your cash flowing. So, I mean, I think some people do very well with Vendor Central businesses, and brands do very well on there. It really just depends on your margins and what you're selling it to Amazon for. A lot of times they'll try to call you up and really bargain down your price. We've had that
Right.
quite a bit, but because we actually sell both on Vendor Central and Seller Central, and I definitely think just for cash flow, Seller Central is a bit better
Right.
for moving things. I think the benefit is when Amazon's selling your product, they give you a little more of a boost sometimes. I think I don't know if anyone notices, but Amazon might break the rules a little bit when they're listing things.
Right.
Or you get a little bit of a so there is that to it. But just make sure you have the right margins, and then if you can wait the amount of time that they take to pay you, then that's fine. But it takes a long time. I know it's definitely more frustrating in the process for shipping everything. I mean, I used to go and do the shipments to Vendor Central, and it's just a much bigger hassle of a process. It's so I mean, FBA in general is much easier. So yeah, I used to have to label all these different boxes and go through all these different processes, and it took a long time to do. So
okay, I mean, I haven't got any experience with it, so I can't say for sure. But from what I'd heard, I was going to say that I thought, essentially, in a nutshell, I thought it was like, okay, it's less hands-on, but there's less control. But then, like you're saying, it sounds like there is still a lot of work to do with it anyway. So would you say that for a beginner, if you're just looking at starting an Amazon business today, that you're better off just, going with FBA or private label or whatever?
Yeah, and I think because I think you have to. I think Vendor Central, you have to be invited as a brand. I think there's something. So really, everyone should just start FBA, and you have more control over your listings to just edit them. The back end of Vendor Central was always the most frustrating thing for me. So Seller Central in general, and I haven't been on there for a little while because I just try to forget it's there sometimes. But Seller Central is much easier to navigate, much easier to edit your listings and your photos and upload things. So, and it used to be that you could only do the A+ content if you had Vendor Central, which we, now have it on Seller Central. You can do all of that. And so I don't see that many benefits to Vendor Central unless you're a big brand.
In a nutshell, stay away from it.
Yeah, stay away. Just do the easier one, which is FBA. And I mean, and there's still hassles on FBA, or Seller Central. Yeah. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Okay. Let's see. This is kind of an interesting one from Joe. If you have multiple or 6 figures to invest, how quickly do you think you can scale to 7 figures a year? It all does come down to, you still need to learn the process and you still need to know what you're doing. But assuming all of that, Kerry, you're probably the same. We've spoken to a lot of sellers that have scaled to 7-figure businesses from much, much smaller investments than that. So
Yes.
if you had that much to invest, I'd say you could theoretically scale very quickly.
You could. I actually would say though, start with one product anyways.
Yeah.
Just because you're gonna make all kinds of mistakes, and you don't want to do it on a bigger scale. You want to get rid of all those mistakes. So things go wrong that you just don't expect, and you learn things along the way that you just didn't expect. So my advice is to definitely learn as much as you can about the entire process. We have tons of videos on YouTube. We have the $1 Million Case Study. We have a boot camp coming up. If you want to get involved with that, just learn as much as you possibly can about the whole process. Get that one product started, get your feet wet that way, and then start to launch from there. Because I think a lot of people I've seen people who do have a lot of money and they just want to throw money at something, but don't take that time to really learn that process, that just like you were saying, and you're going to end up losing money. So, but you can definitely scale much faster if you have a lot more money. But again, you just want to have that expertise.
Yeah, that actually reminds me about a question or something that we were talking about just before we came on here, Kerry. You mentioned that you'd received questions before from sellers. Perhaps they're coming from a retail background or something where they're currently selling several hundred products or thousands of products coming from, I don't know, maybe from some other brick and mortar or whatever, and they're looking to put that onto Amazon. And we were kind of discussing what would be how would they go about it? And that sort of ties into this. It's like, again, if you have that many products already and you're wanting to get started on Amazon, even though you could just throw them all up immediately, I would also suggest just kind of starting with that one product at least, and then, learning the process, figuring out all the kinks, making the mistakes on the first product before you launch more. Because also, when you do one product at a time, you become laser focused and you see the little details with that one product. You see where, like, changing keywords or whatever, you see the effect that it makes, and you see what happens when you change an image. You're kind of laser focused and you notice all the details with one product. Whereas if you just put up a whole heap of products at once, you're probably not going to be looking at all the details, and so you might have a lot of products that maybe only they're not as optimized as they could be. Whereas if you're focused on one, you'll learn, you learn how to optimize that really well, so that you'll be better equipped when you do want to launch more products.
Yeah, because there's so much to manage. You got your pay-per-click, you're always kind of testing your listing and your photos and trying to make sure they're all good. You just want to make sure to get it right. And I was watching an intro to a masterclass from Sarah Blakely. She started Spanx, and she says, don't be afraid to start small. She started with $5,000 and an idea. And I think that there's something to that, is, really putting that effort into those small, because once you actually start putting a lot of money into it, you're going to need to scale a team. You're going to need to have people helping you, because you can't do it all yourself.
Exactly.
Just managing your PPC itself is a monster if you have multiple products. So you want to think about, okay, I'm going to start with this product. I'm going to understand the process. Then I'm going to figure out how I can scale a team to really make this big. So there's a lot of things I think you need to plan and just really be aware of all the details to make sure that you are successful and profitable.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, if you're investing that kind of money, you would definitely want to build out a team to, handle all of those different tasks. And I think there's so much benefit in going through the process yourself, so that you know what a good PPC manager or whatever, account manager, you know what they should be doing, because you understand the process yourself. You don't have to stay hands-on all the time, but I think the more of an understanding that you have of the process, the better the team is that you can build to support that.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, and so hopefully we answered that question.
Yeah. All right. This is, I think you've already kind of answered this one, Kerry, but it kind of relates back to what you were saying before. Joe asks, is it possible to move a brand from one seller account to a new seller account? And
I am currently trying to do this right now.
okay.
If you have any advice, honestly, for me, we've been trying, and we've gone a bunch of different routes, which is why I would say to separate them when you first begin, because it's going to be a lot easier to be able to do that. And when we started, we weren't thinking about this in terms of selling the brands separately. Maybe we didn't think that it would be that difficult, but it is a big challenge to separate those accounts out. So I haven't had any luck with it so far. So I can maybe keep you updated on some future ones, but we're still working on it.
Cool.
I don't know if you have anything to add, Lenny, but that's where I'm at with that. It's a difficult process sometimes going through Seller Central. They've got all kinds of rules that don't make a lot of sense, and you just have to work with it.
And it kind of changes. It's that whole thing of you ask one person, you get one answer, and you ask someone else, and it changes. And
exactly.
Amazon gives you these verdicts, and they don't necessarily explain their reasoning behind it. Yeah, I think it must be possible though, because I think I have heard of people doing it, but it's like you said, it's kind of a big headache and challenging. Yeah.
So if anyone is listening and knows how to do it, you can maybe put something in the comments and let us know that you know how to do it, or give us some advice there. That would be awesome. I'm sure there's a lot of people who'd like to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, this is an interesting question. Greg said that the top 3 positions get 92% of the clicks. So does that mean that if we don't rank our product in the top 3 positions, that we are unlikely to make enough sales to be successful? So that's a really interesting question. I don't know the statistics, but that sounds fairly correct. That sounds fairly right to me that the top 3 products would get that many. But essentially, this is where you want to do thorough product research. Using Jungle Scout, for instance, it's it will tell you exactly the sales that all of the top listings get of any particular niche. So as long as you can see when you're doing product research that the demand or the number of sales that people are getting is spread out across the top 10 positions or that first page of results, and then you do your diligence in kind of tracking all of those products over time, then you can be fairly certain that okay, maybe the top 3 products still get maybe the majority of sales or more than everyone else, but you can verify at least that other people on that page do still get enough sales in order for you to be successful if you were in that position.
Yeah, and I also believe it depends on the product, because there are certain types of products that you I've gone to the 3rd and 4th page. For example, if you're doing t-shirts or something, you're looking for a certain type of t-shirt, you might look through all the different designs because you're trying to find a different one. So I'd say for the products that are pretty much basically the same, it is probably harder to get past the top 3 because they all look the same. But if there's something that's going to differentiate them, maybe that's what's going to make it different. Or that's something to think about too. How can you bundle this product to make it separate yourself from all these other products that are in the top 3 or top 10? Whereas if somebody looks at that page, they're like, oh, you get a free this with, oh, I want to buy that because I get a free extra product with it. So that's how you can kind of get creative. And that's why I don't like to say, oh, you should never do this or never do that, because if you get creative, there's a lot of different avenues you can take to promote your product and to get yourself some sales. And you'll see on the extension of the top 10, they usually are pretty spread out in a lot of different categories and in the top 10 on each page. So I wouldn't say just the top 3, but I would say that's probably where the most clicks happen. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like you said, you can get very creative. So for instance, one thing that just popped into my mind is the newer sponsored product ads. So it's okay, if the top 3 listings in that niche are getting the most clicks, it's you can actually advertise on their product detail pages. So if you've got a better offering in terms of price, or maybe you, like Kerry said, have a bundle that includes that product but something else, you could be advertising on their page and actually using the fact that their listing gets clicks, and you can appear on that real estate. So yeah, there's
That's so
definitely
awesome.
ways. Yeah.
Are you going to go into detail on that in the boot camp, or talking about these PPC strategies for getting?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're definitely going into a
Yeah,
lot of detail with PPC campaigns inside of the boot camp.
yeah.
So
So don't miss it if you. It's going to be a good one.
yes, absolutely. Let us know if anyone wants any more information on that. The Freedom
Yeah.
Builder Boot Camp. Okay. Da, 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 da. Okay, the next question is from Crypto Zara. Hi, I'm Armani. I'm an arbitrage seller and ordered a product from China but didn't brand it yet. We have had no sales whatsoever. How to generate traffic? What do you think, Carrie?
I don't know what the product is. And so I'm assuming you started out arbitrage and now you're doing private label because you're ordering from China. PPC is definitely, if you're not doing pay-per-click advertising, that's really how you start getting visibility on that first page, is pay-per-click advertising. So you've got to do pay-per-click advertising. What do your photos look like on the actual listing? If somebody were to click on your listing, do you have great photos? Do you have great copy? Do you have a lot of good keywords written in your title and bullets? There's a lot of different things that really have to do with conversion. So maybe even if you were in the top 3 of something, if your listing isn't very good and the pictures aren't very good, then you might not convert. So think about all these different things. We do have some stuff in the academy about optimizing your listing. So if you go on Jungle Scout, we have a ton of information there for optimizing your listing. And I think that's probably a good place to start. Also, pay-per-click advertising. If you don't know how to do pay-per-click, you can hire somebody to do pay-per-click advertising for you in the Jungle Market. So those are the main things I'd say when you start. Also, we have Jump Send, which is a way to kind of get your products out there to buyers who want to buy products at a discount. So basically you can discount it maybe 50% and start to build and generate some sales, and you also want to get some reviews. So, when people look at your listing and you don't have any reviews, they're like, well, I don't know if this product's going to work very well. So getting those reviews at the beginning is important. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this. It's hard to say specifically because I haven't seen your listing or what your strategy and what you're doing right now, but those are just some things I would recommend if you haven't already done those.
Yeah, it is that whole thing that I think often people are looking for, that kind of like magic bullet or that secret way to kind of get additional sales. And there are some different things that you can probably do to generate additional sales, but really what it comes down to is the whole process, like you've kind of outlined, Kerry. It sort of starts with having a good product. So it's like, how does your product compare to everyone else in that niche? Have you made a product that is differentiated and better than the others? That's the first thing that is actually ultimately going to impact your sales. Then once you've done that, you then need to get visibility. And so that's by using things like PPC to appear at the top of the first page. And then once you're there and you want people to click, well, it's like, how good is your photos and your title to entice people to click on it? For instance, like one little tip that was shared, we had Seth from Just One Dime YouTube channel come in to record with Greg a few weeks ago, and we recently released that video. There's a ton of really great tips in there, strategies for 2020. But one of the tips that he shared was, what he likes to do is he takes the main image of his product and then he kind of like photoshops it in to the page. He takes a screenshot of the first page of results for his niche, and then he photoshops his image in there into one of the spots, and then he like gives it to friends and family or puts it on social media and Facebook, and essentially asks people like, which one would you pick? And essentially, if people aren't choosing his photo, then you know that like, okay, I need to do some work on my photo. So you can kind of get feedback on like, which photo is doing better. So, photos, like Kerry said, is really, really important. And then optimizing your listing. So really getting sales is a culmination of all of these different elements. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like your friend, or it sounds like, who was it from Just One Dime?
Seth.
Seth. Okay. doing kind of their own split testing process. Like they're kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a really
So
cool idea.
that's,
Yeah,
that's a
that
great
tip.
idea. You don't have a tool for that. So yeah, great.
Yeah. All right. All right. Adrian asks, what company do you guys use for graphics for your listings? What do you think, Carrie?
Well, there's a great jungle market that we have a bunch
I knew
of
you were going to say that.
freelancers on there. I started out working in vetting freelancers, so I know there's a lot of really great people working on there. So you can go on the jungle market and get some graphics and photos for your listings, and that's what I've done. I found a really great video company too. We just created a video for our product, which is really awesome. It's stuff that I don't know how to do, so you can outsource these things and get them done. And I would say for photos in graphics like infographics, make sure you invest some money into those, because I think they're really important. Photos and infographics are probably the number one thing for conversion. So make sure you have beautiful photos.
Yeah,
But yeah, hire
definitely.
somebody on the jungle market.
Yeah, the jungle
So
market's
yeah,
pretty awesome because, like you said, these people are vetted and they specifically have a lot of experience with Amazon sellers. So, they understand all the requirements that Amazon has, like for your main image. They know how much of the image it needs to take up. They know that it needs to be against a white background. They know what can or can't go in that image and then in all the additional images. So it's really handy working with a graphic designer that already knows all of that stuff, and you can kind of trust that the images they create are, going to be accepted and going to, be ideal for Amazon.
And the cool thing about Jungle Market is the funds are held in escrow. So when you buy something, we hold the funds in escrow until the whole thing is completed. Until you hit complete, the freelancer doesn't have the money yet. So it's kind of a good
Right.
protection for you. Whereas you don't get that with a lot of sites. And so if you're nervous about giving money for certain things, that's a great protection.
Yeah, that's a great point. Awesome.
So there you go.
Cool. Let's see. Any questions that stand out to you, Carrie?
Pilar's asking, she says, Lenny, you're great. I always learn so much from you. I try not to miss any of your live videos. Do you give one-on-one classes by FaceTime, Skype, or calls? Well, maybe I think this is a good time to also, what we were talking about before the boot camp, Greg and Lenny are actually going to be coaching people in smaller groups. So that's a great opportunity to have some one-on-one attention from those awesome sellers. So that's something. I don't see any other. Yeah.
No, that's a great question. Thank you for the kind words. We've never really done we've never done one-on-one coaching, and Greg gets hundreds of these requests every day. And the reason behind that is because the amount of time that it would take to kind of coach one-on-one, we could be sharing that information with a much broader group of people. And so that's why, Greg and our whole team has kind of invested a lot of our time, or all of our time instead, putting it into videos like this so that we can be sharing our content with, dozens or hundreds of people or thousands of people at any given time. We can just help more people that way. So that's where, things like Ask Jungle Scout, or if you guys have seen the $1 Million Case Study, which is, we've had 4 seasons of that on YouTube. And then if you're using Jungle Scout, you'll know of the Academy inside of there, which has a ton of education. Kerry works really hard on the Academy team as well, creating that content. So yeah, that's where we've devoted most of our efforts. That being said, we recently have decided to build out an FBA course that goes into all the little nitty gritty and all the extra details that isn't fleshed out in some of our other content. So we've designed this program that is, it's called the Freedom Builder Bootcamp, and we can link to it in the description of this video as well afterwards, so I can make sure that that is there. So if you do want a little bit more of that sort of hand-holding, or a little bit more of that sort of personal attention, Greg is going to be leading some live Q&As and live coaching within that one, along with Rolando from the $1 Million Case Study. I'm also going to be in there a little bit. You get access to our exclusive Facebook community. And again, you know, myself, Rolando, and Greg as well are all going to be in there helping you guys out. So that is more of a close-knit, closer to a one-on-one, more personal type coaching. So if that is something you're interested in, then I'd recommend kind of checking out the boot camp. So we can kind of link to that one in the description.
Yeah, that's priceless, getting all that access from people who are just have been amazing sellers. So yeah.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It is kind of interesting because, you know, really with anything you want to learn, whether it be FBA or anything else, a lot of the time you can more or less find all the information on the internet. You know, you can sort of piece together lots and bits of pieces and so forth, but I guess with that comes challenges as well, because it's like you might be getting information from different sources, or you might have very specific questions that aren't answered there. So it's like you can find a lot of this information out there. You know, we do try to put everything or as much information as we can on YouTube and the Academy and so forth. But there is, you know, a lot of added benefit to kind of having that mentor, having that more one-on-one time with a particular coach that can kind of just speed up those learnings. So for some people, it's definitely a good way to learn.
Awesome.
Cool.
I'm trying to see if there's any other.
Let's see. Okay, here's a question from Roberto. If I purchase 500 pieces, do I need 500 UPC barcodes? So assuming that I understand this question correctly, I'm assuming you're actually just ordering one product, but you're ordering 500 units of that product. If that's the case, then no, you only need one UPC barcode. So the UPC barcode is, you just need one UPC barcode for any given product, or product variation. So if you're selling like, you know, a water bottle or a mug or something, and it comes in like black, red, and blue, you would need 3 UPCs. So, you know, yeah, for every variation of a product, you just need one UPC barcode. But if I want to send in 500 units of this mug, you don't need that many UPC barcodes. So hopefully I explained that in a simple way.
I think so.
Cool. Okay, this is a cool question. So Jeff asks, hello, some are recommending us to build brands off of Amazon now instead of just listing products. Do you agree? If so, how would you recommend building a brand? Well, we already kind of like covered this earlier in terms of some of maybe the pros and cons, or really the fact is you can go about it either way. But if we assume that, you know, someone does want to do this, what are some ideas that you have, Carrie, in terms of building a brand off of Amazon?
You know, like I just finished building a Shopify site, and that's actually very doable. So I would recommend you can create a Shopify site. Make sure you have some great pictures. I took some of the photos, so I will say I did do some of that on my own. But it's really easy to, once you can buy a template and you can create these websites. So a Shopify site is a great way to do it. I wouldn't take your focus off of Amazon though. If you're doing really well with Amazon, I think Shopify is going to be kind of a secondary thing, because you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket. You know, Amazon does have quite a bit of control. So, but you know, most people are going to Amazon to buy products. So I would say to have both for sure. I think creating blogs is a really great idea. Pinterest is another awesome idea depending on the type of product. So your audience, I think there's probably mostly a female audience on Pinterest. So that's a great, if your product fits into a lot of those categories for Pinterest, that's great. There's all kinds of different things that you can do. Influencers on Instagram, if somebody is within your market, and they might be someone who has an audience that would like your product. Like for example, if you have a fitness product and there's a fitness guru, you can ask them if they could, you know, promote your product, and, you know, usually you pay them for that. So that's definitely a great way to do it. Build your own Instagram account. That's another amazing way to do that. So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways. You really just want to get creative, but I honestly would say that, your Instagram account and your Facebook and all that, even if you just have Amazon, that's a great way to, keep building your Amazon business too.
Yeah.
So all these things really can work together very well. Getting that presence off of Amazon is a great idea if you are building a brand, just to build that awareness. But blogs, I mean, all those are great ideas. So there's
Yeah.
so many things you can do. Choose things that you're good at, that you like to do, or if you want to hire somebody, you can hire somebody to help you as well.
Right. Yeah, I'd say that everything that you just listed are what I'd consider to be the top things that you would want to do if you're considering to build a brand off of Amazon. Also, like you said, Kerry, I personally, if I was going to take that approach, I would do it simultaneously. I wouldn't try to just build it off of Amazon first or whatever. Personally, I'd launch on Amazon and at the same time be trying to build all these sort of digital assets off of Amazon. So if you are going to start an e-commerce brand off of Amazon, you'd basically want to set up a Shopify store, like you said. And so, Shopify store on your own website, and then you would definitely want to create blog content, for that particular market. So producing regular content that way. Having a Facebook page is basically a staple. And then I'd also say as well, like Kerry said, Instagram. So I would then do Facebook and Instagram. On Facebook, I would then be trying to create a lot of content. You could obviously be sharing your blog posts and so forth. But then I would try to do things like, let's say you have a weekly live Facebook show that is sharing tips and tricks or whatever related to the niche or the market that you're in. So I'd say those are probably the main things. And then yes, like influencer marketing is huge today. So I definitely consider that or doing that really, really quickly. So those are all the things that you just said, Kerry. But yeah, I would say those are probably the most important areas to look at. Of course, there are plenty of other things, other platforms and so forth. But yeah, that's where I'd start.
Yeah. And don't do too many things where you get overwhelmed, because I've done that too, where you're just like, oh man, I have all these different things. Just build gradually, otherwise it really does get overwhelming. But I think what you said about those lives on Facebook, I actually follow a bunch of different things. And actually, here's an example of one. Grace and Lace was on Shark Tank. They sell women's clothing, and they do these live launches. And I'm always just like, when's the next launch? When's the next launch? And they get so much business that way, doing these live launches of their products. So thinking about things like that too.
Yeah, actually, now that you've kind of said that, that is kind of one of the reasons why it might be preferable for you to just stay on Amazon, because it is very easy to get overwhelmed with all the different things that you could do. There's so many different social media platforms and just so many different marketing strategies, because then you're like, oh, should I be doing whatever, Google ads, or should I be doing, YouTube ads, and I need like a YouTube account. Actually, that's another one that you could do. I'd probably still do the other ones first, but you could build a YouTube channel, and it'd be very, very easy to get overwhelmed with all the different things that you can do. And so, also like you said, Kerry, unless you build a really big audience and a really big brand, most likely, most of your sales are still going to come from Amazon for a long, long time until, you build a really significant brand. So long term, it's a great idea to build this huge brand off of Amazon, but for a very, very long time, probably a year, maybe a lot more, or like maybe a few years, you're going to be putting a lot of work into building this brand off of Amazon, but it's probably still going to be only a small percentage of your overall sales. So I guess it's like, if you do want to take that approach, you do need to be really certain that that's the direction you want to go, because you could just be spinning your wheels and spending a lot of time doing all this. Whereas if you just want to make some money, you might be better off just kind of focusing on Amazon, or maybe focusing on Amazon and just doing one channel at a time. Like, okay, I'm just going to create blog posts for a while, or I'm just going to do Facebook Lives. You might be better off just like starting with one channel or one platform and really mastering that before you introduce another.
Yep. Yeah, focus is really important, because I know people are talking about, oh, maybe you should do Jet or Walmart or anything like that, but really, I mean, you're just going to distract yourself. If you're making money, if you're doing well on Amazon and you're focused, like, just keep doing that. Keep growing your Amazon business. And yeah, definitely have a Shopify site. I think that's a good idea, but don't get too distracted. Focus, focus, focus. I think that's where I sometimes will get carried away with other things, and you know, and then I'm always like, no, I got to focus. And that's when you focus is when you start getting those numbers, you know? So focus.
Yeah, there's kind of like enough things just on Amazon alone that you could always be tinkering with and always be improving your listings in different ways, or there's new features that they're rolling out in brand registry or whatever that you can try out. So it's like even just within Amazon, there's just so much that you could always be doing that you need to be quite focused on what you're doing even within Amazon, let alone off of it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Cool. All right. Pilar says, I'm going to order my first product from China, and I'm doing the DDP Air. Do you think it is a good decision being my first time, even though it's more expensive, or is FOB not that hard to do? So I'm guessing this is kind of asking just really between, like, should I be doing Air or C? Is that kind of what I'm reading here?
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it depends on your margins too. So I don't know what your margins are, but if you're a heavy product, air is probably not the way to go. So it just depends. What do you think, Lenny?
Yeah, I mean, C, for instance, is like a lot cheaper for sure. I'm personally someone that I like to be a little bit more aggressive, and like I think speed is really, really important in this business. And so I'm personally happy to ship by air for the first shipment or two, just to get my product to market as quickly as possible, so I can just start getting rankings, start getting sales and reviews and so forth. So I'm kind of a fan of doing that to start with. The caveat being that you've done the calculations, and you know that you can get really solid profit margins later on with C, and the idea would be after your first shipment, or maybe your first couple of shipments, to switch to C, and you'd basically just continue on with that. The only other time is like you said, Kerry, if it is a really heavy product and it's just ridiculously expensive to ship via air, then you probably still do C anyway. I guess like an example of that is the $1 million case study product, the jungle sliders that we have. So I've actually got one here, but I can't get it out. But you know, they're obviously like quite big and heavy, and so we've never shipped that via air, and like that probably would be something that would just be too ridiculous to even consider or worry about doing air. But if it's kind of something smaller, like a mug or whatever, then I'd personally be happy to do that. But I guess it depends on how much capital you've got up front as well, whether you can actually afford to do that. So yeah, it ultimately is just a question of time versus money, and which is more important to you in that stage.
Definitely.
Cool. Oscar asks, hi, I live in Florida and want to know if Amazon would split my products to different warehouses. What do you think, Kerry?
Yeah. So a lot of times you'll ship to one warehouse, and then you might end up, dispersing to different warehouses throughout it. And sometimes you might have a lot of inventory in one particular area of the country, because maybe that's a more popular place for your product. Like we have a product we have a lot of inventory in Florida because it's more popular there. So yeah, you will disperse those, throughout. Usually that's how it works.
Yeah, but I believe like a lot of people say, although I don't know that it's like guaranteed or it's not confirmed, but I think a lot of people say that if you make your ship from address close to the warehouse that you would like to get your inventory sent to, that you're more likely to get it sent to there, or they're more likely to generate that as the shipping address. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, Kerry, or like had any experience with that.
Not that I can. I think because just ours are all over, so I don't know how they
Right.
do it. I don't know what their thought process is or whatever they're.
Yeah.
Other than I think that it has to do with more popularity in a certain warehouse for the prime shipping.
Right. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I guess I've been pretty fortunate that basically all my shipments, I think all my shipments these days, they all just tend to go to one warehouse for whatever
Okay.
reason. So yeah, I haven't had to kind of worry about it being split, fortunately. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. There was some like rules of thumb that we got from Flexport, for instance, with you guys. Oh, you guys can't
Oh,
see this.
nice.
Let me. So this is kind of like some rough rules of thumb. Let me see if I can get that into the screen. So these are some rough rules of thumb that we got given from Flexport, just to give you a little bit of an idea of like the difference in cost. So roughly like $5 per kilo for air freight or 60 cents for ocean freight. Again, of course, this does really depend on what your product is. It's, you know, how much space or weight and so forth that it takes up. But yeah, that hopefully will give you a little bit of a ballpark in terms of shipping cost, and then you can kind of calculate it for your particular product per unit from there. Alrighty, let's
That's
see.
very helpful.
Yeah, you should check it out. So that's actually we can drop the link into the chat box, or we can add it into the description. But that's from the $1 Million Case Study, episode number 7, I'm gonna say. How to ship your product from China to Amazon. So you can definitely check that out on our blog on Jungle Scout. Oh, another question from Roberto. You're getting lots of questions in. Is JS hiring? I believe we're always hiring. You can actually just go to junglescout.com/jobs, I think it is. And that will kind of show any positions that are available if you are interested. So yeah, feel free to check that out and see if there's anything that interests you. All right. Eddie asks, howdy JS team. Typically, what percentage of products fail and get discontinued? Let's say you launch 10 products, how many would fail? Not because the numbers weren't correct at the research phase. That's an interesting question. I don't know if have we ever had any data around that specifically? I don't know
So I mean,
if there is.
I haven't had any products fail because I think, I guess it depends on what you call a failure too. But we haven't had, like, I think if you do the right research, if there's demand for it, even if maybe you aren't able to get it ranked or you just want to blow the whole thing, you can still liquidate that. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because he's
That's
also saying
question.
Not as a result of, doing bad research. So he's like, Eddie's giving the, assumption that you've done good research.
I think if you've done good research, you're not going to fail. I think we should probably focus on the fact that it's more likely if you do all the work that you'll succeed, because I think when you focus on that failure part, it makes you nervous to start. So
right.
The cool thing about Amazon is it's an actual physical product. So again, like if it didn't work out, you can still liquidate it and get your money back.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, there's no perfect formula for launching. Even within product research, it's sort of like you've got all these boxes that you want to tick in terms of, of all the things that you need or that you must have. And it's like, it's very rare that a product will tick every single box. There's usually like, okay, it's got really low competition, but maybe the demand isn't quite as good as I wanted, or maybe it's like slightly bigger or heavier than I wanted, but it's got good demand and low reviews. So it's like there's usually, you're not often going to find something that ticks every single box. And then, of course, every single product, there's just so many variables that affect the success of that product that really it is just about, you just want to stack the odds in your favor. The more of those boxes that you can tick, the more work you put in, in launching it, you're just increasing your chances of success. You can never really guarantee it. And that's just really a rule of business in general, not even FBA. But I guess that being said, there was this interesting process that I saw once from this guy. I can't remember where he was from, but he had this really cool process where he kind of reverse engineered how many products he wanted to launch. And he had this system where it was like, you know, let's say that 1 out of every 3 products that I launch ends up being like a home run. The others don't do quite as well. So he's like, okay, I need to launch 3 products in order to get one that is really successful. And then he kind of like kept going backwards and went like, okay, in order to then launch those 3 products, or it's like he wanted to launch 1 successful product per month, right? And then like, you know, 1 out of 3 would be that successful product. So therefore I need to do like 3 products. I need to launch 3 products per month. And then in order to find each one of those, I need to shortlist probably like at least 5 or products or something like that. Therefore, I need to find X number of product opportunities, and therefore do X amount of hours of product research. And he kind of like had this really interesting system so that it's like, okay, if we're doing this much product research and picking this many products, it's sort of, it gave them the best chance of success. I don't know if those numbers were quite right, but...
Does he have a lot of capital? Is that... I'm
yeah,
assuming
this was someone... Yeah, this was someone that had a lot of capital, and he was talking about scaling his business. This was his approach. You know, this wasn't like his first product or anything, but he had like a whole team, and so now this was kind of their vision, and that's how they looked at it. I mean, you can kind of change the time frame. You know, I just said a month. I can't remember whether it was a month, but you know, I like that approach because he, you know, it takes the emphasis off of all or nothing on this one single product. And it's like, while you do want to give every single product all of your time and energy, and you want to do your absolute best to make each product a home run, I think if you have the understanding that, you know, out of every 3 or 5 products that you launch, some are going to just inherently end up doing a lot better than others. And that may not be something that you can really predict before you launch it. But if you just have the awareness of like, okay, sometimes some products aren't going to do as well, I'm just going to continue the process, continue to launch products with the knowledge that like, okay, one of these is going to do really well, rather than like some people, like if the first product doesn't do, you know, as well as they would have liked, they just kind of give up, rather than just being aware that like, okay, that's just the reality, is that sometimes it isn't going to do as well as you wanted. You just need to repeat the process. So yeah, that was kind of like my takeaways. I thought it was like a really interesting kind of strategy.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily, if the product is making money, wouldn't necessarily say to discontinue it. There's a guy who did pickleball thing or rackets like a year or 2 ago, wasn't selling that many, but now pickleball is just exploding. And so if he would have been like, I quit because I'm not making as many millions or whatever, but now he's making tons of money. So sometimes, you know, you're getting in there early. So, and you know, watch the trends, see if maybe that's something that's up and coming, or if it's becoming more and more popular as time goes on. You can look at Google Trends for that kind of thing too.
Yeah, that's a good point. It depends on what you deem a failure. And I'd say unless you're losing money consistently for a, you know, quite a period of time, I'd try to keep a product going, even if it's like got small margins or breaking even. Obviously, it's not ideal. It's not going to grow your business, but it's like getting sales through your accounts and everything is still better than not getting sales. And you know, you can still turn it around at any point. If you do have a product like that is low margins and is only kind of breaking even or not making much money, I definitely would suggest like looking for that next product and trying to launch a better one, but I wouldn't necessarily kill that existing one.
Yeah.
All right, let's we'll just answer a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up today. Okay, Joe asks, how long would it typically take from when my products arrive at the fulfillment center until they go active on my listing? Do you have any ballpark figures, Carrie?
It depends on the time of year. So Q4, you're going to want to add some extra time in there, but it's not ever consistent for me. 1 to 2 weeks usually. Sometimes things have gotten lost and it's taken a little longer. I don't know if you've experienced that, Lenny, but I'd say 1 to 2 weeks, maybe add some more time to that for the holidays. Always make sure to get your inventory in early for the holidays because it takes them a long time to check it in just because they're super busy during the holidays, Q4 especially. So as far ahead as you can, I think for Q4 is a better better option. But yeah, I'd say 1 to 2 weeks, but that's been my experience.
Do you mean like even outside of Q4?
It really depends. I mean, I haven't seen it consistently. I mean, sometimes I'll check it in immediately and I'm like, oh, cool. Sometimes it takes a while. So I don't really know what their process is. I want to go behind the scenes and see what they're doing so that I could give you a really good answer. So yeah, I would just, to be on the safe side, just assume for your inventory purposes and management 1 to 2 weeks so that you're safe. That's what I would recommend. Because you want to make sure you don't run out of inventory because your listing will just plummet if you run out of inventory. So I like to be on the safe side. So
yeah, I think that's a good call, is just kind of allowing extra time rather than less. In my experience, it's definitely been at least a couple of weeks during Q4, but outside of Q4, it's usually not too bad. It usually varies for me from like a couple of days to maybe 4 or 5 usually. That's to get the majority of my inventory received. Usually what happens is it's like, if it's 1,000 units, it's like within that 2 to 5 days, 993 or something will end up being received, and then maybe it'll be like a week or 2 later when I get the email that says that it's officially been delivered, where they either find the rest of my inventory or they don't, and I'm trying to get my money back. But usually it's been like reasonably quick outside of Q4, but I'd agree with you, Carrie, just to always allow at least 1 to 2 weeks, but definitely during Q4. Probably.
I had one time where they lost our inventory, and I think it took about a month for them to find it. We were already trying to get reimbursed for it, and then they found it, and it just appeared magically.
Right.
So, actually, something to think about.
Yeah, that's actually kind of like an interesting thing to maybe talk about quickly. Do you have a process for getting reimbursements? Like, do you check every shipment? And because it's actually pretty common that there's at least a few units that are lost and that you're kind of losing money on. Do you follow up
usually
with that?
The smaller amounts, you can find them, or they usually kind of show up a little bit later. But we actually hired a company to help us get a bunch of reimbursements because it's a lot of work to just go through sometimes, especially when you add more. So we actually hired some, and they take a commission on the amount that they recover for you, which, otherwise it'd just be lost because it's a ton of work to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've gone into the nitty gritty of it, but it's just, and it always is changing.
I did use a service that would basically do that for you, and they would basically automatically contact Amazon and create cases to try to recover or open up investigations for those missing inventory. But I had a feeling that it got closed down, or that like Amazon, those services got stopped, or maybe it's the part of automating the cases or something.
Yeah, we're still doing it right now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool. I'll have to look into that.
In fact, I got a number like last week via email. So.
Okay, that's cool that you still can do that. I'll have to look into it. Cool. Any of these top ones sticking out? We'll have to wrap it up pretty soon. So maybe we'll just choose 1 or 2 more questions to wrap up today. All right, let's just do this one from Meet Norman. How many products do you need to be selling to reach a 5-figure profit per month? That's interesting.
I don't necessarily think you necessarily. There's some, if you look on the extension there, that one product sells 5 figures per month. So it depends on the product. And how you're marketing it and stuff. So yeah, just look on the extension or just look in the database and type in the parameters, for a lot of sales. That's what I've done that before, just to see what kind of products are selling, and some of them even hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, just one product. So
Yeah.
you can't really say how many products because it really depends. There's a lot that goes into it, but I've seen it's kind of fun playing around with the product database that we have in the extension just to see all the different high selling products. We did something called the unboxing series, and I helped find those products that were selling thousands of dollars every month but had terrible listings. So we kind of tore down their listings on that unboxing series. So if you want to check that out, you can see some of those products that sell for, sell lots, every month. And they don't even have that great of a listing. So.
Right. Yeah, it is kind of like a tricky one to answer. I'm just trying to think it through if I can kind of give any sort of hypothetical, because let's say, 5 figures, let's say you want to be making 10K profit per month. If you, for instance, you want 10K profit per month, let's say that you had a healthy profit margin of 25%. So that 10K would need to equal, 25% of your revenue. That's about $40,000 a month in revenue. And in order to do that, it's typically with a $15 to $20 product, that's probably going to be anywhere between 2 to 4 products, maybe. This is all very, very ballpark, but.
Yeah, you can check on the extension to see what the demand is too for that product. So is it even possible to make a certain amount for that?
Yeah.
So you can kind of see kind of a maximum best case scenario of what you would make on that particular product by doing some estimates using the extension.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's probably the better way to go about it. It's probably anywhere from 2 to 5 products, I'd say, depending on all these various other factors. Yeah. Alrighty. Let's see. All right, so let's pick one last question. What do you think, Carrie?
There's what's an average monthly income and how many hours do you need to work once your product is launched?
I think that's a good one to end on. Cool. So what's an average monthly income?
I don't know about an average monthly income, but I think the amount of hours, I think the initial amount of work you're going to do is when you first start putting your listing together, doing the photos and all of that stuff. But you still need to maintain your PPC, and you want to keep checking up on your listing, make sure you're up to date, make sure your photos are still kind of running, giving your competition a good run for the money. What do you think, Lenny, in terms of hours?
Yeah, if I had to give some ballparks, I'd say that initially to get launched, it'd be somewhere between 40 to 50 hours to get launched. And depending on your situation, typically for people, that's spread out over, a number of weeks, doing it in and around maybe full-time work or study or whatever else, and on weekends. But yeah, I'd say it'd maybe be something like that, 10 to 50 hours to kind of get launched. And then you can theoretically just manage the business in maybe 4 or 5 hours a week, or maybe 5 to 10 hours a week. You can kind of manage it. But then the amount that you spend on the business to maintain and grow it, that is what directly affects your average monthly income, really. So it's you could just get away with, let's say, 4 hours a week to kind of just keep on top of things, tweak your PPC campaigns, keep an eye on your listing, keep it in stock. But if you really want to grow your business and your monthly income, you probably want to continue just dedicating as many hours as possible into it, trying to do at least, 20 hours, or like spending your weekends, spending a couple of hours at night if you can. I guess it's like the good thing is if you just want to make some money on the side, then, well, you can actually make some reasonably decent money on the side, but you can do it off of a few hours per week. So it's great that you can always fall back onto just being fairly hands-off. But it's like, if you want this to replace your income, or you want to make 6 or 7 figures, then you would need to, treat it like a real business where you want to be working towards spending full-time hours on it, or as much time as you can.
Some of these big sellers that sell millions a month or a year, they have a team going. So you're managing a team. So it really does turn into a full business. So it's not something where you're just going to be like, yay, I'm just going to set it and go to Bali.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. You still have to work on it and grow it and manage it. So.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's not a strictly passive income business. I wouldn't really call it that at all. It's a very scalable business so that you can do smaller amounts of work, or with a smaller amount of effort, you can generate a lot of income and a lot of money, but it's not passive as in, you can just literally check out and, head off to the Thai Islands or Bali or whatever. But, it is really great in terms of the sort of time to freedom ratio. It is really, really great, but it's not like 100% passive.
Right.
Cool. I don't know if I can add anything else to like what's an average monthly income, because we've seen businesses all across the board, depending on really what situation you're in, like whether you are just kind of supplementing your current full-time job, you want an extra $1,000 per month or an extra $5,000 per month, versus like people that, their whole goal was to replace their income, and so they're earning whatever, a full-time income. And then there are people that are, doing the 6-7 figure businesses, and they're building these empires. So it really does vary a lot. Actually, offhand, I'm trying to remember whether in the kind of the seller survey that we did a little while back, where we got a ton of feedback. We had that, I think, that really cool infographic with all of the information that we found out. I can't remember whether there was any information on there about any average monthly income. I don't know. We'll have to check it out. If when we find that, I'll link to that in the comments below. But yeah, hopefully that helps.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, well, we might wrap it up there. Carrie, thank you so much for joining today and answering all these questions. I'm sure everyone appreciates it a lot. Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah.
Everyone, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've got some value from today's episode. If you have, please make sure to give us a thumbs up below and subscribe as well so you don't miss any of our videos. Happy selling, all the best, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.
See you later. Thank you. Bye.